Welcome to the fourth episode. In this episode, we're just gonna be chatting Chrissy and me. I want you guys to get to know Chrissy and kind of her heart behind her career in AV, fighting kind of for where she is now and what she has found to define her. I was picking out hosts for the podcast, I had so many wonderful women, but Chrissy really stood out to me. And I just want you guys to get to know her a little bit the way that I've been lucky enough to start to get to know her. And so I think we'll hop into a lot of good topics today, and we're just kind of see where it leads us. But do you want to do like an intro? I feel like we've never really fully done an intro of you. You've just
Sure.
kind of been like, this is Chrissy, I work here, and then I've said my name and where I work. Just give like
Yeah,
your little elevator speech.
I love it. Yeah, I'll pretend I'm on stage real quick. But
Yeah.
yeah, so my name's Chrissy Sara, and I am a CTSI holder from AVIXA. I've been in the industry for about 15 years. The start of it was actually in broadcast TV. I had fully intended to become a late night TV producer, but the AV industry did what it normally does, which is just kind of scoops you up and steals you away into a land of crazy wonder. So early on in my career, when I was working at some of the news stations in the Illinois area, I got a request to work a freelance gig for a scoreboard operator, and I had never done that in my life, nor did I even know what it was. But they assured me that I would learn easy, and then it would be really fun. And that was the 10 days that kind of stole me away into the AV industry. I ended up moving to Nashville and working in scoreboard technology for 3 years and front end LED display control, and learned a lot the hard way. Applied a lot of the engineering aspects that I learned in college. And then I moved to another company that basically I just moved to a different piece in the rack, which does the video processing for the LED. And that was a really fun job. It really put a direction forth for technical training, which is where I got a lot of experience in communicating to a lot of different people in the industry, different tenures, different knowledge bases. It was a great experience. From there, I went to AVIXA, and after AVIXA was Sony. So I've been to the four big AV companies, and then before that, it was a lot of live events and different TV studios that nobody's going to know about. But it offered a really cool background, not just in the technical side of things, but also understanding people and understanding AV people and the different tiers of AV people, and end user, integrator, manufacturer, stakeholders, that whole 9 yards. So teaching at AVIXA became very natural for me because I had already experienced a lot of that personally, and all I had to really do was learn how to speak in the AVIXA language in order to learn how to teach it, and that was a fun journey. So now I'm in a like you've heard, service at Sony, and it's the coolest job. I get to talk with a lot of people who've been at Sony for a long time. I also get to see the inner workings of Sony that I might not have seen in my previous role, which was a lot of travel. And that means a lot of, out in the wild, in the field, which is great. I love that, right? I do miss it. I saw Alicia's video on E4, and it made me sad because, I haven't been to an E4 in I don't even know how long. But at the same time, I get so much reward entering into my day on Monday, and everything that's on my to-do list is right there in front of me. There's no guessing. There's no waiting for a plane to land. It's right there. So it's been a fun journey. And now I get to have the space and opportunity to foster conversations with women in the industry. And when you approached me for this podcast, I was like, yes, now's the time. Let's do it.
I'm so glad it worked out because I can't imagine better co-host, but I'm not great at giving compliments. It's always awkward, but
Me neither.
we're like, oh yay, thanks, cool. Yeah, talk a little bit more about that though, because right before this episode, you were talking about how I think you're 3 weeks on the new job right now, and you're talking about how great it has been. So kind of talk to us about what is so good about your current position and versus where you were before? And, what thoughts and or maybe advice do you have about getting to a place where you find a position that like really you feel like fits all aspects of you? Because that's like a
That's a
dream
great
situation.
Yeah, that's a really great
Yeah.
question. So that's gonna be a long answer, so get ready.
I'm ready.
Um, I think the first thing is to preference the 3 weeks is I started my new role April 2nd, but the last 3 weeks has been the most stable weeks
Oh,
as far as,
gotcha. Yeah.
getting over that newbie period and trying to, like, learn who
Mhm.
everybody is and how they can, collaborate with each other and so on and so forth. So, I feel like the last 3 weeks has been the most stable for me, which has given me the most realistic view of what my future is gonna look like for the next, however long service wants to have me for. So, I am, that's what I was referring to with that, and the part of it that's just so fun for me is that every single day there's a new challenge, and I think that was something that brought me into the AV industry in the first place,
Mhm.
was that every day brings a new challenge, every client brings a new challenge. If you're a traveling freelancer, no one show is the same.
Mhm.
Um, and it took me a long time to figure out that I could have that same amount of challenge in a different way, right? My identity doesn't have to be wrapped up in the situation of travel and the situation of bringing clients together and businesses together to create the AV solution in the field. It can also be at my desk and in fostering conversations and moving initiatives forward. I think it when Avixa moved some of their employees on in 2020, it gave me a good chance to review my skill set.
Mhm.
And that was something that was very hard for me to do because I was, recovering imposter syndrome, recovering perfectionist, recovering person that would just give everything and all of my energy and time and heart to whatever initiative was put in front of me, which I don't recommend doing that because you have to save some of that energy for myself so that I could
Yeah.
be present in those initiatives, which that's a whole nother topic. But when I did that, I literally sat down and I said, "What do I feel like I'm good at doing?" And I whiskey was involved. And um I wrote down things that I've heard people say that I do well,
Uh-huh.
how I feel about those compliments, and then where
Uh-huh.
I feel like I actually am. And what that exercise did for me was create a soft and a hard skill set.
Mhm.
And one, it made me appreciate the work that I've done up until that point in my life and in my career, but it also gave me a lot of appreciation for the people involved in my journey who helped foster those skill sets.
Yeah.
Um, so when I did that, it gave me perspective of what I could offer the industry, because that was another big question: is if I'm you know lost the identity that I had at Avixa as a CTSI instructor, and then I knew that travel was, inevitable because that's a lot of the AV industry. So, like,
Mm.
I was kind of lost for a little bit there, but grounding myself in who I am as a person in this industry first
Mm.
before letting the industry define me, which was what the first part of my career was. That was kind of the first lesson in that for me. And the cool thing about working for Sony is that they give you the option to feel things out for yourself. They um and foster where you could go. It's not
Mhm.
like a set path
Yeah.
where you show up and are going to go here, and then if you spend 3 years here, you're going to go here, and you spend 3 years there, you're going to go here. There are ways that it works out that way, but it's not set in stone. Um, I think another part of success too in this journey is I have to know myself as well as I want to know the other people. So, for instance,
Okay.
I understand going back to the VP that I was starstruck over, I understand that I don't need to be starstruck over her. I understand that we are all the same people. I get the reality of that.
Mhm.
But looking at her being a woman in leadership who has been with Sony for a long time, that's something to look up to for me,
Mhm.
right? And I feel like Sony fosters that environment. So when I first got the position at Sony, I was like, this is really cool. Is this true? Like, could this be real?
Yeah.
And uh, when I had the traveling really keeps your mind away from things that matter, and it also can provide it can provide a lot of other pros and cons. But one of the things that it was doing for me was distracting me from my goals of being the best person that I could be in the AV industry because traveling was becoming such a burden for me.
Mhm.
And when I was had the opportunity to change that over, now I can see a bigger picture without the stress of travel. I don't think people realize how much their bodies and lifestyles have adapted to travel. Remember, I was doing it for 15 years.
Yeah.
So left college. I mean, I was already traveling inside of college. I left college to my first career, or
Mhm.
excuse me, my first job, and then have been traveling ever since. So this year is the transition year of me not doing that anymore. Um, and that's
That's
offered a lot of
crazy. After
yeah,
15 years, my goodness. Do you
yeah,
feel bored a little bit for being in one spot, or is it the new position is challenging enough that you're, like, occupied? Because you like you said, like, traveling distracts you, you know?
right.
So, does it feel very quiet and still now?
It does, and it's very welcomed. I think part of traveling, again, there's pros and cons to traveling, but part of the travel life that I experienced was the pace that it is.
Mhm.
We are natural homebodies. We naturally want to be in our home, wherever that is. Some people's homes are hotel rooms versus their actual homes that are wherever they live. Some people's their home is the rental car or their airplane. For me, it was a little bit of both for a couple years throughout those different seasons of those 15 years. But something that it didn't do was there's a lot of things that are fleeting inside of travel. For instance, there's the huge dips, or I should not dips, but the huge highs of getting to a industry event where you're seeing all your friends and you
Mhm.
get to fill up your social cup and shake everybody's hands and have drinks with those that you're gonna have drinks with, and then you go home and you don't see them for another 3 months. And
Mhm.
throughout that 3 months, you're seeing another group of AV people and another group of AV people, but what where is the ability to really um, foster those relationships
Mm.
and connect with those people as people. And sometimes you don't want to, but being that I'm a very, I'm an ambivert, I like to have relationships in the industry because I like
Yeah.
to be able to say, "Hey, can you believe X, Y, and Z?" And they know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So, how are you fostering those now that you, like, rarely ever see them?
It's a great question. I'm figuring that out as we go.
Mhm.
I have to remember that it's not unheard of. Um, And if I have been innovative enough to be able to work remote and travel for a good part of my career, there's I just have to figure it out. It's just a puzzle to solve.
Yeah.
I just reached out to Jimmy Singleton yesterday. I
Mhm.
saw his picture on a LinkedIn thing and I realized I hadn't talked to him since I gave him the CTS study group. And I saw him for like 2 seconds at InfoComm this year and I'm like, why don't I why don't I just call him or why don't I just text him? Like, it's not like I have
Yeah.
to wait for an event to happen to talk to Jimmy. Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's true, it doesn't have to be a thing.
so it's ask me in like 6 episodes and we'll see
Okay.
how that translates. But I think a big part of it is getting myself out there. And now that I have the emotional and social energy to do that, I think it's going to come more naturally.
Really quick, I wanna go back to you were talking about how you, like, were writing a list about the things that other people said you did well at, and then kinda, like, what you thought about that. Did you ever really sit down and say, okay, but here are, my like weak points and the things I need to focus on? Or is that kind of like your hot take that maybe we're so focused on like our weak points that we forget to leverage the things that people are already seeing where we're talented at? Does that make
I think
sense?
if I could put what you just said on a banner and like fly around, Infocom skies with that, that is what I would say. I think that we get so focused on, we wake up in the morning, we're like, all right, I have 19 tasks to do. I'm going to do them, and then I'm going to be exhausted by 8 p.m. That we forget that there's like life to actually live
Yeah.
and enjoy the work that you have done. Like I think the salespeople that I've had the honor of working with throughout my career, they've taught me one, how to make things look good, even though they might not have 100% guarantee that they're going to win something. They still put themselves out there and do it. And I don't think that they realize the amount of strength and courage it takes to do their job every single day, because every single day they have customers, praising them and cursing them. They have sales, they're losing sales. Like that doesn't scare them. They go out there every day and they put their best foot forward, and they rely on the relationships that they just built. So I have always said in my weak category, sales. I've always said that. But at
Okay.
the same time, my entire career, companies have been trying to poach me for sales all
Mhm.
the time. And so I'm like, why? Like, what is it that I'm not?
Yeah.
Am I actually strong in sales? Like, what is this confusion point? And the I think that I could now that I have this perspective of myself, I think I could actually be very successful in sales. It's not a job that I want by any means, but the reason why I had put that in as a weakness is because I felt like I didn't have the courage and the strength like I see them have to go out there and look rejection in the face and be like, well, tomorrow I'm going to win the $1 million bid. And then the next
Mhm.
thing comes and they don't win it, and they're still saying that to themselves. So it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of being challenged by saying, I'm not what these people say I am. I'm going to go try my hardest to be what they're saying I am. And then the other side of the coin is, it doesn't matter what they're saying about me. I'm going to still win the thing. I'm going to still do the
Mhm.
thing. So the episode we just had with Hope, I mentioned the reason why I want to find a mentor. One of my other weaknesses, I feel, is my dialect. Being able to pronounce
Right.
hard to say names. Every now and then Midwest euphemisms come out that shouldn't be there. And I'd love to kind of lock that up a little bit, right? So
Mhm.
I would say that's a weakness. And instead of just kind of letting that fall by the wayside, I do want to get connected into the mentorship program and connect with somebody who has had a similar path where they had to refine their speech a little bit so they could be better understood among international audiences. And
Yeah.
also, um, I don't want to. I am very much a cowgirl at heart, personally. Like I've grown up on a farm. I have had horses for a long time, and I don't want people to think that that means that I'm all about, dirt and Bud Light. I'm It's not like horsemanship is a very beautiful hobby, and it brings
Mhm.
out a lot of character and builds a lot of character. I've had some fantastic relationships with animals over 25 years. And I if anything, it's a huge strength to live the cowgirl life, and I'm just so used to it. It's very
Mhm.
normal for me. I'm taking my nieces to a show this weekend. Um, and it's a part of me that I love. I love that I can go to a rodeo over the weekend or to a horse show and not have to worry about how I sound,
Yeah.
right? But I also don't want to take away from the strengths that I do have in a business meeting just because I'm afraid of how I'm going to sound.
Mhm.
So it's a multi-complex balancing act.
Yeah, it's like, I know that we talked a little bit about code switching one of the episodes
Oh
where
yeah.
you're yeah, but then it's also code switching while still maintaining some sense of integrity for who you are, and your background and the uniqueness that you bring there, because I don't know many people. I'm pretty new to the industry still, though. I don't know many people who have cowgirl background with an AV. It's pretty cool. It's pretty unique. I think that's interesting. It's also very memorable, which I think helps in any case, just to when we're meeting and connecting and trying to find or trying to find out who we are outside of just our kind of professional titles. We were kind of mentioning that a little bit earlier as well, before the podcast episode, where we were talking about how, for me, or you were talking about defining yourself as a professional and finding ways, and finally getting to the point where you're not letting certain things define you. And then for me, it was interesting because I'm like very adamantly still into, I think, where you were before you learned everything, where I feel like it very much is my definition, because in a work environment, nobody's asking about what I do on the back end. Like, they ask for my title, where I work, and that's who I am to them. And I think sometimes we've met people in the industry and then we know that about them, and then we just don't ask anymore about who they are. And it just kind of becomes just we're talking about daily events and we never know. Like, I never knew that background about you. And how many hours have we talked now? It's so interesting just to find, I feel like what details maybe are or aren't important when like sharing kind of who you are, getting to know people in the industry and defining yourself outside of just your job position title and where you work.
I love that. I think there's a lot to unpack with that sentence. You have the brightest mind. I love it.
Very
So,
that was what do you call those sentences? A run on. That was a run
oh,
on.
run on, girl! I'm the queen of run-on sentences. ADD does not allow you to have punctual grammar. But I love that because if I was to talk to my younger self, I would say, you're not defined by your situations. And that's easy to say, but what does that mean?
Mhm.
And one thing that I have always kept to is, or go back to, I would have a highly technical week, and then I would go ride my horse on the weekends. And that was my a lot of my career. And something about completely like exiting that brain space and going to something that's very grounding. I cannot be distracted by signal flow diagrams when I'm trying to move a 2,000-pound beast. Like,
Yeah.
like, I have to be 100% present there. And as a kid, there there wasn't I had a lot of good times as a kid, but the majority of the path was not easy, and I could have very well easily grown up thinking that I had to still be in those chaotic environments, and I had to still be defined by what my elders had told me I was. Um, and what wasn't fostered in me as a child was how to find my own identity and how to find my own strengths. There wasn't a, hey, you can do this, you're going to do great mentality. And I've seen adults my age now that did have that in their childhood, and they don't question themselves. And I'm like, what is life like not questioning yourself every single minute of the day?
Yeah.
And it's it's a challenge to rewrite that, and I feel like I've been doing a really good job of rewriting that. But just to go back to your point, when I show up today, honestly, even earlier in the last maybe six or 7 years, I have brought that cowgirl confidence to the back end of my head.
Mhm.
I've had to, because that's the only place in my life where I did have confidence in myself.
Yeah.
And I had a wonderful friend when I had worked
Wait,
at a company.
that's so good. Make sure you remind me to go back to that.
Okay, I had a wonderful friend in the industry who was afraid of horses, and I said, "Well, come out and ride my horse. He loves people." And she was like,
Mhm.
"Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, and if you fall off, it's only 6 feet from the ground, so we'll just patch you back up and you'll be fine."
Only.
She's like, "Okay, let's try it." So she I don't know if you know the term round penning, but it's a term in the horse world where you put a horse in a round pen, and it's a 8-foot high fence It's about 50 feet in diameter. Put the horse in there, you stand in the middle, and then you work on groundwork.
Okay.
And it's a fantastic exercise to connect you and the horse before you go and ride for 2 or 3 hours. If you just get on a horse cold, depending on the horse and the mood and the day and all the environment factors, that could be a really yucky ride. So
Yeah.
putting them in the round pen is like a way to kind of set the stage for how well your ride's going to go. And she just looked at me and she's like, I don't understand how you tell me how insecure you are in some of the things that you do in business, but you're in here telling a 2,000-pound animal
So cool.
when it can breathe.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never thought of it that way. And ever since she said that to me, I have been trying to not code switch so hard, but instead rely on the strength that I didn't know I had to then build the strength that I'm using today.
Yeah.
It's been a journey.
Which, when you said that, that was so almost profound for me, because it's like you're borrowing confidence. Nobody said you can't borrow confidence from other aspects in your life, and
Yeah.
like just
Oof.
really dig into somewhere else that you're just like, oh, I feel really great here. I'm just gonna pretend that's that situation right now.
Yep.
Because it does require so much confidence to be in there and to know that, like, or to make even somebody else feel safe with your horse and like all of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. I never really thought too much about horses. I've ridden them like several times throughout my life. I don't know why. There's just been different situations where I did. And the most recently, like last summer, I think, we went on a horseback ride. And they asked, am I comfortable with horses? It was like me and this big group of friends. And I was like, yeah, I don't really care. Like, I've ridden plenty of horses in my life. And I think they took that as a little more confidence. Then and that horse, they gave me the grumpiest horse ever. And he just kept trying to nip at me and would just like go off the trail. And then now that you're saying the round pin portion, I was like, maybe I should have had some time in the round pin with the horse, because she was not having me. And now ever since then, I'm like a little hesitant about horses. I'm like, I've had such wonderful horse experiences up until then. I was scared at different points. Like, she definitely was like trying to get me off of her back. She was over it.
Yeah, when you said she, that's very common traits of mares.
Yeah, she was not happy with me. And there was one portion where we were crossing a river, and then she just like wanted to go her own way. And I was like, my horse is not going the way the people. And then the guy had to like circle back around, and he was like giving her some taps and like, being like, no, you have to go this way. And I was like, I'm so over this. My like boots are wet. My, like my jeans all the way up are wet. He just went too deep. And everyone else is like, that was the most relaxing ride ever. I'm like feeling so much trauma afterwards. They're such beautiful beasts though. But like, that was the first time I realized, like, oh my gosh, this is a 2,000-pound animal. Like, so beautiful, but so much it's very much its own entity as well. Yeah. I was like, I'm sorry, girl. I would get off of you if I could. I'm sorry. But that's so cool that you know so much about horses.
Thank you. That's a really great analogy to kind of tie everything together with what you just said too. Is something that the horse world has taught me is that the success of my relationship with my horse is only going to be as strong as I feel about myself. So if I go to the farm and I pull up and I see the horses and I park my car and I get out, and the state that I'm in is, I'm not really feeling it today. Or maybe the state is, I am angry AF. Like, I am just mad. I'm here because I have to be, or the state is, I only have 15 minutes and I'm going to say hi and then I got to go. Or a state of maybe sadness or some kind of mood or mindset. And when I go and I put the halter on the horse and I'm leading the horse to the barn to clean it and put the saddle on, we've already established how that day is going to go.
Do they like sense it?
They pick it up in nanoseconds.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So if I go with the mentality of, I'm just here because I got to be here, then then that lesson or that time on their back, or however, whatever we're going to do for the day, that is the most I'm going to get out of it is, well, we just did the thing. If I go at it from an angry state, horses have a very good sense of how to humble you very quickly.
Yeah.
Because no matter how angry you are, if you're trying to tell them to go left and they're testing your patience and they don't want to go left, you can't just beat on them. You have to
Yeah.
calm yourself and figure out how to nurture the conversation to say, I know you don't want to go left, but I need you to go left because if you go right, you're going to fall off a cliff. I need you to go left. But
Yeah.
they don't feel that. They don't see that. They just sense the anger. So in like to tie that into how I've borrowed that confidence, or that lesson, I should say, of how to go to things in a correct mindset, is in the AV world, when I'm getting ready to go on a trip to an industry event, something that's more local or regional where I can kind of let my hair down a little bit. I remember first who I'm representing, which is my company. Two, that I have my own brand, which is somebody who is very interested in teaching people about technology and how the AV industry works and how to foster customer relationships. And then the base and the foundation is that I'm a very authentic person. What's the management structure and the mindset involved has to say, which of those take priority? How can I balance all of those in the same event?
Mhm.
If I go to that event, even with those items in mind, if I go to that event angry, or I just want to get this over with, or I only want to be there for an hour, and any longer than I have to be there for, I'm just going to hate it. Like if I go with these
Yeah.
mindsets, or worse, I don't know how I'm going to do. It's going to be awful. I'm not made for this. Like scared out of my mind. Whichever the mindset is, that is exactly what's going to come out of it.
Yeah.
Because that's what horses have taught me.
Yeah.
And so I've tried, especially over the last 5 years, I've tried to really adjust how I approach really everyday things, but industry related. It's everything now to meetings and to foster relationships that I have with people in the industry, and go to them with, like, when I texted Jimmy yesterday, I the reason to text him was, I have not talked to you for a while. I hope you're doing well. How are things?
Mhm.
And we had a great, quick little text conversation, and we moved on. Like if I would have went to that conversation with like, oh, maybe he's not going to text me back, or oh,
Yeah.
maybe I'm allowing too much of my authentic self to show through, or oh, maybe I'm not being as authentic as I thought I was, so I'm just not going to, like, if I let all that win, then I would have never had an opportunity to check on a friend.
You're the future learned, healed version of me. So I'm like trying to learn the lessons you've learned the hard way, the easy way. But I feel like some of these you just have to learn the hard way. I'm like really trying. At times I'm really good at borrowing confidence and really good at catching those, inner thoughts and feelings, and saying like, okay, but what evidence do you have to that? Like, you're catastrophizing something that's like not really a thing, like, but just learning about that. But I feel like also this also applies to kind of, hear me out, this, I feel like this also applies to teamwork, in the sense that like I feel like a part of being a genuine team is understanding like the human essence of everyone, and understanding that we're all coming at different parts of borrowing confidence, or truly confident, or wherever people's thoughts are. So how are you accounting for that in working in a team where everyone's kind of at different levels, but we're all trying to work towards a common goal? And what do you think kind of builds into this like genuine like tribe that you can build? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Um, I started a master's this year in industrial and organizational psychology for this exact reason of what you just said.
Mhm.
And that is that there's a lot more under the surface of people than just the assignment that's in front of us.
Mhm.
So, kind of piggybacking off of my analogy, let's say that my coworkers and I got a initiative from C-suite that said, "You guys got to go do this thing. Here's your KPI. We want monthly updates. Go forth and do." The first thing that I would do is connect with each team member and learn how their thoughts of the initiative, where they see pitfalls or pros and cons, essentially, how they would like to be communicated with, and then create a sense of structure of teamwork, not of I'm just gonna get this done because this was given to me by C-suite and I have a KPI to meet, and like
Mhm.
it's I have to I want to get to this point with you guys. And the success of our KPI is based off of the strength of that team. So in my mind, I'm a perfectionist. So in my mind, I'm going to want every single line item met at every single deliverable date with no delay, even maybe even early. Like,
Yeah.
I can't project that onto the team and expect them to share the same passion. And also, I can't get mad at them when we're missing deliverables or things need to change because of X, Y, and Z. And then get this grumpy, resentful state because that's not going to help the team move forward.
Yeah.
Um, so understanding team dynamics is way bigger of a topic than just being a good leader. You have to
Yeah.
understand and be compassionate to how people are coming to the event, to the topic, to the initiative, kind of just like we talked about, bringing the mindset in. My mindset is my own. If let's say I have 4 people, I'm going to have 3 other mindsets to collaborate with, and that's a good thing. I think that previous mentalities have made that out to be a problem.
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, great, I have to go do this thing with this person," rather than, "What could we get out of this?" It might not be exactly what we are trying to get to, but it will be something.
That's for sure.
It will be something. One thing I wanted to say in kind of to go off of what you said earlier about yourself, um, is about me being the healed version. I love that you are striving for this, and I think that's something that I really enjoy about your personality, and just knowing you and getting the chance to witness you go through this journey is just what an honor. And I wouldn't want you to do it the same way I did it because I have my own stuff. You can
Mhm.
certainly borrow my experiences and
Or
borrow my confidence and borrow this,
forced
but
confidence.
I wouldn't want to put you exactly in the meetings that I had to be in order to get to this point. You have your own beautiful journey that's already happening that you get to bring to the table and say, these are the experiences that helped me become the person I was today. And you don't have to stress about those having any more impact or missing the impact, or worse, devalidating your experiences because they're not mine.
Mhm.
Um, or maybe you don't feel as strong yet in those areas,
Mhm.
um, because they are the foundational pieces that are creating who you are going to be and who you are today. So don't, I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't devalidate what you're experiencing or the things that you're going through, because every single person has their own journey. In the opposite, celebrate the heck out of yourself, because if you didn't have the initiative to say, I can't keep feeling this way, I cannot keep feeling like I shouldn't be here, or I'm not as strong as I am. If you feel that way about yourself, that is how you will be forever.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have the confidence and strength to say, I'm not going to feel this way anymore and I'm going to make a better me. So I don't know how to do that, but I'm going to figure it out. Like, that's awesome.
Well, that's why I liked so much. That's why I really liked when you were talking about writing down your skills and writing down the things that people are already seeing in you, and like focusing on really harnessing those skills instead of always focusing on, the weaknesses and the things that you're like it might be a little bit harder. Maybe sometimes I feel like I'm a big believer in sometimes when you're starting something really hard, you need those quick wins at the beginning to really start that momentum. And I think if I had done that, or if I start doing that a little bit more and focus more on like the talents that people are seeing that I have and fostering those versus being so focused on, where I feel like I lack. Like, for example, I'm like working on my CTS. I'm trying to get my technology knowledge up, because I feel like I know it in practice, like from when I was in those classrooms and like doing installations, but I don't fully know it as well as I would like to. So I'm like really trying to do that, but then it is really hard, and we do have those moments of imposter syndrome and invalidating, kind of where I am, and seeing people like, and I'm also comparing myself to people like you or my brother, for example. He's really big in installations, AV, and like his knowledge is like wildly outside of my knowledge base. But then also at the same time, I know a lot of the different, like I have a lot of different skills that he doesn't have. And it just, that's kind of how we foster that team. And kind of building off of what you said, I actually was talking to a friend recently, and she's recently come into a management position, and she is so type A compared to the rest of the group. And so the previous manager that she's replaced was very like laissez-faire about things, and everything ended up working out, but it was like very last minute and something doesn't really like the energy of. And so she's like trying to figure out how to work with them and say, like, they're clearly great technologists and analysts and stuff like that, and team members, but she's trying to like figure out how to work with their skills and how they like to work and what their priorities are, and trying to figure out where their confidence comes from, and like adding it all and finding that happy middle, which I mean I feel like is kind of the theme of the episode, is the happy middle
I
of
love that.
everything like that. And it's always interesting, the human elements of everything. I feel like we
I
get to
think
that
I think it's
every
the beautiful
episode.
element. It's crazy, it's chaotic, it's um unpredictable. And I think that's the cool part of working with humans is they come from all of these different places and backgrounds and traditions and understandings, values and beliefs. There's a great book I just finished reading called The Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni.
Yeah, actually
And
Jimmy and I did that with our team when we
oh,
worked together. That was good.
it's eye-opening, and
Yeah.
it helped confirm that I'm in the right path in my leadership training. And it
Mhm.
also made me realize that I have to find what that voice is, where that voice is in my head, where that came from, that said I can't do the thing. Because the whole fact that I'm in the team means that I can do the thing.
Yeah.
Like the logistics of it is the opportunity is right there.
Mhm.
And if I approach that opportunity by saying I can't do it, then I'm not going to be able to do it. So I think that's why the challenging aspect of my new role is just so fun, is because it's like, okay, give me that thing, and what of my, going back to my list, what of my strengths and soft and hard skills can I apply to this,
Yeah.
and what's not going to work, because what worked maybe for the last project, that had different
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Different people, different elements, just adding one person or taking away one person can just change the dynamic so much. Even like
Yeah.
when we're doing our podcast, it's always interesting kind of adapting to each guest and like figuring out that dynamic, or even the dynamic of being virtual versus in person. That was like such a huge learning curve for me. I did not think interviewing would be that much more different in person than it was online. I was like, "Oh, it's good," but there's just so many nuances that you pick up on in person, and I feel like
Yep.
that's also another skill that's like very underrated. I feel like we're going to evolve as humans as we keep going virtual, in a lot of ways, and learning how to read people via screen
Totally.
and see those like little nuances that we've learned how to do over centuries in person. That'd be interesting. I feel like this episode is less about women in AV and just like humans in AV. Have it instead
That's
of
my whole
women.
stance on EI. We are humans in AV.
Yeah.
Like, let's just get it done, whatever it is.
Yeah. All right. So is there anything else that you wanted to add or touch on, or um
I would just
anything?
maybe end with like an encouragement to people who are listening, that whatever situation you're in isn't meant to define you. It's meant to teach you or support you, maybe even change an aspect of your life. But I would hate for people to walk away from a day at work and feel like they're lesser than because something didn't go right, or
Mhm.
maybe got yelled at by somebody, or lost a sale or something like that. We don't celebrate the positive things that happen throughout our career. Like um, they just released the 40 under 40 list, and
Mhm.
that, like, looking at that list just gave me so much joy that there are this another round of powerhouses in the industry
Yeah.
who are kicking butt and taking names. Um, so yeah, just drive that part home is, remember where your confidence is, remember who you are as a person, remember that your situations don't define you, the things that go on throughout the day. And if you don't know what defines you, take the energy that you have of hating yourself, change that, and go find out what's going to define you.
Yeah.
Because the more energy you spend hating yourself, the more energy you're showing up as inauthentic, and it makes things a lot harder for people in life.
Yeah, and if you need the quick wins, find the things or even ask. I feel like texting a couple people and being like, "Hey, what do you think my skills are professionally or as a person?" And just like kind of getting that. I don't even think that I wouldn't even if somebody texted me that, I wouldn't be like, "Oh, they're fishing for compliments." I'd be like, "Oh, like this feels very like informational." And I feel like that would be such a great easy win for anyone who like needs a little bit of a boost. And also, I was thinking too, you know how we were talking about borrowing confidence about areas in our life where we're already confident. You can
Mm,
also literally borrow confidence from anyone. So if you want to be, this BA version of yourself and you're like, I'm going to be Chrissy today and have the confidence that Chrissy has when she's with her horses. Like it doesn't, nobody
perfect.
cares where your confidence comes from. Like find wherever you could borrow it from and just be that person until hopefully it becomes super genuine in that area of life. And
Yeah.
this is a good episode. I liked it. I hope you guys got to know a little bit more of the Chrissy that I'm still getting to know and just see um just how wonderful she is and how we're all growing, and I commend her for openly growing on this episode and for pouring into us as listeners, me as a co-host, and with each of our guests. I hope that you are learning a little bit more about yourself and learn a little bit more about becoming a better leader and a better professional and just a better woman slash human in AVIT. Cool. Thanks everyone. Oh, what do I need to let them know? What's the office stuff? Make sure if you want to be a mentor or mentee, that link is always going to be in the show notes. If you want to become a member, it's always in the show notes. We have events come up every once in a while. So keep an eye out for that. And thank you so much for listening. Make sure you share, like, comment. We love hearing from you guys. And if you ever need any advice, there's a link for you to submit your questions and anything you need advice on in the show notes as well. I think I covered everything. Did I?
Yep, you got it.
Cool. Thank you from me and Chrissy.
Bye.